Okay, guys, coming at you with another case study here of a real property I bought and rehabbed in 2020. Still own it today. And there's a number of points I want to make here. This one's a bit entertaining with some of the story, but more than anything, I want this all to be useful. It's not just me telling stories, but pulling morals, lessons out of them that I would have liked to have known 6, 7 years ago. And so this is Hazelwood Court. It's a small house. I did buy this one with a partner, 50-50, in the beginning of 2020. Two bed, two bath, just shy of 1,000 square foot. It is built like a townhome where it shares a wall over here, and then there's an identical house on the other side, but it is deeded as a single family home. Bought this from a wholesaler, so we paid 200K. It was recorded at 185 because the 15 was her assignment fee. And to summarize the points I want to hit on before I get into this, number one, I want to talk about equity versus cash flow, talk about location and the condition of the house, when and when it is not appropriate to put in sweat equity, focusing on long-term relationships, and treating people like people, even if they're not the friendliest of people. So this house was disgusting. We went to tour it, right? She was doing the typical wholesale thing where she walked people through. And I'll never forget, she was a new wholesaler that got lucky right off the bat. She shared all the photos of the house and she accidentally shared her buyer's list, and there was like 3 people on it. And I remember calling the guy that I partnered with, my buddy, and I'm like, we got to go look at this now because nobody else knows about it. And so I said the house was nasty, but it was in a very nice neighborhood, very well kept. It was the nicest house, or excuse me, the nastiest house in a very nice neighborhood. And that's a great way to find deals. Okay, so that's the first point is going into nice areas, right? You cannot replace location and looking for the distressed house, the piece of crap. And that's what this was. When we first toured it, I bought one of my other buddies and the smell was so bad. I remember he goes, Dan, I got to get out of here. I'm going to puke. And he couldn't stay in the house because it was so nasty. The son lived there with his dad and what was ostensibly his girlfriend. And we'll get into that in a minute. But when we toured it, just the stench was unbearable and it was disgusting. However, all the infrastructure seemed fine. The foundation was fine, plumbing, electric, HVAC. This house is 1984, not dealing with a lot of the crap you deal with older homes. So I liked that right off the bat. And I forget now because it's been 4 years what we thought the market value was at the time, but we didn't think this was a killer deal, but we thought it was a good practice rehab with a nice house as far as location because it was only cosmetics and it was less than 1,000 square feet. So I think we thought it was worth about 250 market, totally rehabbed, bought it at 200, and we were only planning to put about 10 grand into it. Okay. Now, point number two, my partner at the time was bringing almost all the cash. In fact, he told me he would do all the cash since I found the deal, and then I was going to do the work. However, I wanted to show that I was serious. So as an act of good faith, I sent in the earnest money deposit myself, which was 4 or 5 grand. So I didn't have a ton of money back then. Just to say, hey, I'm serious. And he really appreciated that. And he brought the rest of the cash to close this. We used a hard money loan out of a lender out of Denver, and we went to rehab it. And I did it myself. We repainted the whole exterior, all new LVP flooring. I redid the tiling in one of the bathrooms, paint, all kinds of little things. And at the time, I was doing some personal training on the side, along with my business, starting my business to make money. I'd bought a number of rental properties, but I hadn't figured out the land business yet, so I wasn't making a huge income. And so I'd get up at 3:30, I'd go do the training for a few hours, and then I'd get to this house at 6 or 7, 8, depending on who I had, and then work on this all day. So I was working my butt off. And I think that's an important lesson. When you're new, you got to be willing to work. This was my third rental, but again, I really hadn't figured out the active business very well. And so I was working my butt off at this point, beginning of 2020. So I think that's an important lesson. From there, we continued the rehab, and we got this thing leased. But one point I skipped over, I want to talk about those tenants. Okay, so the dad, the son, and the girlfriend. So we walked in, and clearly the son was aggressive. He had just gotten out of prison, so that was calming him down a little bit because he didn't want to go back. And the dad was a pushover, right? He was letting the son that was kind of a piece of crap stay at the house. Clearly he didn't want to be, but the son was just freeloading off of him and the dad couldn't tell him no. And so we really took the time to sit down, to talk to this guy, get to know him. What's your situation? Because of course we're walking through as the buyers and he's thinking, oh, they're going to kick us out as fast as possible. These are the big, scary investors. And so we took the approach of just being gentle, talking through him. We tried to talk to the son and really building a relationship with the dad where we gave them a little leeway in getting out. I forget how much time we gave them, but we did give them more time than was required. And we just treated him like a person. And I think this is really important. I just toured a couple fourplexes. I'm buying a couple with this same partner. And we did the same thing with the tenants, right? We took time to talk to them, get to know them. We were very gentle, polite. We have a property manager. We're not going to be the managers, but treating your tenants well is so important, and not developing that confrontational dynamic that so many people do with their tenants, but just treating them like people. And so because we did that with this guy, he got out when he said he would get out. Granted, the house was disgusting, but he left. He got his son out, got the girlfriend out, who actually turned out to just be a prostitute. That was kind of the punchline there. Because we took the time to empathize with them, to help them and give them some extra time to get out. So we sat on this for, I think, 45 days before I did that rehab. But anyways, fast forwarding, we did the rehab. We got this thing leased at the time. I think it's $1,675. And the mortgage payment originally was like $1,100. So a little bit of equity. We were all in around 220 with the hard money costs and everything. 250-ish valuation. I really do not remember what it appraised for. So maybe it was higher than that because I know we didn't have to bring more cash to close, but I don't remember, unfortunately. But all that to say, today, this is what the numbers look like. The mortgage payment has gone up. I'm assuming taxes have gone up. I don't know, insurance. I haven't looked at what pushed that up, but it's gone up a little bit. It's $1,232.80. And guys, this is all off of the most recent mortgage statements. These are up to date. The tenant we have, which is the same tenant since we bought it, pays for all of this, so we don't have to do any of it. We've had really little to no repairs because we rehabbed it up front, but we always budget for that. Again, we've had no vacancy, but again, just put aside a margin for that. Pay $50 a month for management. Rents are now at $1,775. Probably should be closer to $2,000, maybe even over, but these tenants have been fantastic, so we won't just up the rent substantially. We've just done $25 to $50 increases. So monthly cash flow is $292. Now, unfortunately, I don't know how much cash we have into this. Totally lost at this point, but not a whole lot. Might have been 40-ish grand. But the cash flow kind of sucks. It's not great. This isn't earth-shattering by any means. But the point is, over here, loan balance is paid down to 163, 179.88. Valuations around 365. So we have 201,820.12 cents of equity in this property. And that is why we own it, because it's a nice property in a nice neighborhood. So it builds and builds and builds. The tenants pay down the mortgage. It makes a couple bucks every month, but ultimately it's the equity that matters. And we forced some of this equity by the rehab we did by buying a distressed piece of real estate in a nice neighborhood. But it's also been partially the market, of course. These last few years have been crazy. Tons of inflation because of what they've done to our currency. And so this helps hedge against that. The point I'm making here is really with all the buildings I'm buying, it's a focus on the equity, right? That's what really is powerful. The equity and the depreciation you can get out of real estate. Now, again, this is a cheap property, so the depreciation isn't super substantial, but the equity is. That's an extra $100K added to my net worth. I think I have $4,000 of my own money into this property. So that's quite the return. Granted, there was a lot of sweat equity. And then this is the monthly amortization. So a portion of that is just filling a savings account for us. And then we never pay taxes on the income because of the depreciation. And one final thought with this property specifically, I forgot, but this is a double lot. So there's a vacant lot next to this that we own. Totally forgot we own that. I'm just remembering that as I'm doing this video. So it'll be interesting. I'll have to look because over 4 years ago when we bought this, I didn't know as much about land as I do now. Eventually, we'll probably be able to parcel that off or maybe build something there. But there's a whole nother piece of dirt that who knows what the value is, but I'm not even considering that. So just having this nice house has kind of floated the mortgage and well, not floated, it's made money on the mortgage, but it's allowed us to just hold that, and we'll be able to do something with that eventually as well. So in summary, guys, this is a real case example of the piece of crap that we bought in a nice neighborhood from a wholesaler that has added over 100 grand in my net worth, a little bit of cash flow, and continues to do so passively. That's the one other point I wanted to make. You always hear me emphasize nice neighborhoods, nice rentals, getting nice tenants. These people are awesome. Never hear from them. Very friendly. Doesn't matter what the laws become. They would never try and take advantage of us and not pay. So we've had truly a passive investment here. So to summarize, equity is everything. I really look at the cash flows just being a way to carry the building as the equity depreciation and appreciation grow. Nasty houses and nice neighborhoods present opportunity. Don't be afraid to work when you're new. I worked my butt off for, I forgot to say the detail here. I mentioned training people early in the morning and then going into this house and doing the rehab. It was like 45 days straight without a single day off that I worked all day, every day here. That was not fun, but I learned a lot. I got this building with almost no cash. And to one of my other points, I developed a relationship with a wealthy investor who's now my partner on many more deals and trusts me implicitly. So long-term relationships, don't undervalue those. The guy I bought this with, I remember him, he wasn't so sure. He thought I was a good partner, but he was, I don't know, is this guy really going to make anything of himself? I think I was 23, 24 at the time. Yeah, 23. And so working my butt off, putting up money when I didn't have to, were great ways to start that relationship where started to show my worth, my value, and that I backed up my words with my actions. So building long-term relationship with investors and business partners should always be prioritized to the highest degree. And then finally, make sure you treat your tenants like people, right? Don't develop the nasty combative relationship that so many people do. When you walk through buildings, try and put them at ease as far as what you're going to do when you buy it, communicate with them, treat them how you'd want to be treated. And even from a purely selfish perspective, that has definitely helped me make money because it's been much easier to transition buildings, slowly raise rents, and they want to pay more so when you treat them like humans. So this is Carousel Lane. Those are the lessons learned from it, and those are the actual numbers. I hope that was helpful.